Hey guys, it's Misty Buck, president of Miss Inc., and we are here for another marvelous, whatever adjective you want to use, Marketing Monday. I have a special guest today. This is Thomas Keane. He is an insurance advisor. Did I say that correctly?
That's
insurance
correct.
advisor with Ameritas Life Insurance Corp. Tommy is actually a really good friend of mine as well. He's built his business from the ground up as an insurance provider through a variety of different tactics. So today we're going to talk about things like networking, about how he uses education to build his I don't know if you wouldn't say practice, but you would say client list. We can say practice. All right. I don't know what the correct terminology is for the insurance world, but basically Tommy's going to tell us all about it. So I'm going to turn it over to Tommy, let him introduce himself, and then we'll get started. If you have questions, don't forget, put them in the chat and we will get them answered.
Thank you, Misty, very much.
Welcome. You're welcome.
Yes, my name is Thomas Keane. I work for Ameritas Insurance Advisory Group. I've known Misty now for probably 15 years, since our Florida State days.
Yeah.
Probably the last time I've done a face-to-face camera like this before. But yes, I started in the insurance business 15 years ago. I started with John Hancock. And then I would say 10 years ago, I moved over to Ameritas, which is where I work now. And don't plan on leaving anytime soon. I know Misty's big on the whole marketing thing, and I'm hoping to build that marketing link into my business, because up until this point, it's really just been, I started in the business with the do not call list. So when we got in the insurance business, we were given a phone book, and that phone book was call 100 people a day. And of those 100 people, maybe you would get 10 people as a client. And from there, I built my practice from when I would get a client from those 10 people, I would ask, hey, can you please write down 10 people that can help me further my practice? And for 15 years, that's what I've been doing.
So a lot of cold calling.
Tons of cold calling. But thankfully, when you're in this type of business, after 10, 15 years, you get those calls. You get a call saying, hey, Thomas, I got your information from so-and-so.
Right.
And that's how it's been. But I would like to this year, because now I'm learning with the whole COVID that, face-to-face meetings are becoming scarce. So I want to learn how to, let's just say, expand my practice through social media, Instagram, Facebook, which I'm taking the steps to do so, but it's step by step.
It's step by step. Yeah, for sure. So I want to hear more about what you were offering and what you're seeing in the insurance world. But first, I have to ask you, cold calling is like, people are afraid of public speaking. Obviously I can do that, and I'm cool. But cold calling, I have like a deep, deep, deep fear of it. So like, what do you say to people? How did you convert 10% of those calls into being customers? Because if I got on that phone with a cold call, I feel like I'd be so nervous. I'd be like, okay, sorry to bother you. Bye. Like, so how did you work through that?
Well, number one, I had a lot of success between the hours of 6 and 8. With cold calling, it's timing. So when you have people have to be home, right? And then typically what you want to do is you want to do key phrases. Okay. Hi, so-and-so. My name is Thomas Keane from Ameritas. I'm calling in regards to discussing whatever it may be. So our topic of the day would be mortgage insurance. Do you have a mortgage? What's your outstanding balance on your mortgage? In the event that something were to happen to you tomorrow, would everything be okay? Right? And then from there,
people would tell you this information.
Yeah.
This blows my mind. I would never think to ask somebody something so personal.
Well, that's why the do not call list is in existence now. And now it's a lot harder.
Because of you?
Well, I wouldn't say because of me, but
kidding.
it's that's why it exists, because no one, think about it this way. If I put myself in their shoes and someone's calling me about life insurance,
right,
I get scared. And typically what did most people do? They'd hang up.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to have key words that will engage the person you're speaking to say, yes, I do. So, and then, from there it's follow up. But thankfully I haven't done a cold call in 6-7 years, because I've built the practice.
Wow.
But now I'm learning that to scale it, you have to be into social media.
Right.
And in life insurance is a funny game, because you see all these commercials, AIG, the Liberties, all the carriers out there saying, oh, you can buy life insurance for $10, $15 a month. Right. So, but that's extremely misleading. So when you meet with clients, that's the first thing they'll bring up is, well, you're talking to me about a $200, $300 a month policy, but I can go online and get it for $15. And that's false, because at the end of the day, you have to get individually underwritten. You have to pass. So that's the challenge, I think, with marketing, with life insurance services.
So do you have, I know, with banks, insurance companies, a lot of financial institutions, they have parameters around what you can and you are not allowed to say.
Correct. Compliance.
So you have to work through, that's another challenge I would assume as well, having to figure out how do I not violate.
Correct. Well, typically if we're going to go out and we're going to do some type of marketing, you have to get everything run through compliance.
Mm-hmm.
And there's keywords that you can't say. I don't have them off the top of the mind right now, but yeah, you have to be very careful with what you do.
Right.
But I haven't had any issues with that, with respects to that, because our compliance department's pretty good. Everything at Ameritas, you have to submit. It takes a week and a half to get it back.
Mm-hmm.
And if they approve, you can go ahead and put it out there on social platforms. Thankfully, now what they're doing is they're creating a social media platform where we can just share the information to our
so they have to basically pre-approved.
Correct. And you
don't have to think about that. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's
Absolutely.
smart.
But again, I'm so new to the social media prospecting. I was reading a book actually in the lobby, pretty powerful book by, I guess, the gentleman who runs the Doral Chamber of Commerce.
Uh-huh.
But again, I'm looking to to partner with a marketing company that can help me, because I understand the products very well,
mm-hmm.
but I also understand that each product is not a one size fit all, right?
Right.
So when you see these commercials, they make it sound like it's a one size fit all,
mm-hmm.
and that's not the case, So what I do and what I take pride in is meeting with individuals, which is getting harder now with the virus, right?
Yeah.
I've done more Zoom calls than I've ever done in my life. But there's factors that you have to take into equation before you make a proper recommendation on a life insurance policy.
Right. So,
and the truth of the matter is, when I sit with clients and I explain to them, no one even has an idea what life insurance, the capabilities and the power of it.
Right. Yeah. Certainly when we've had those conversations before, I've been completely out of the loop on that. And if you still were to ask me about that, I will tell you to call Tommy, because I just don't know. So it's just not where my brain goes to hold that capacity. There's too many other things going on in there. So we specialize what we specialize in, right? So that leads me to my next question. So when I want to talk about the different types of policies that you work with, but before that, it sounds to me like education, what we were talking a bit off camera, is like education is a big piece of how you are marketing your business. And it might not be like a direct sale, like you're sending out a marketing, like an educational brochure, but having those one-on-one conversations, would you consider that like a piece of the marketing, doing
Absolutely.
those educational meetings?
Absolutely. Now, after being in the business for so long, for me to actually go out and to see a client, I've had a phone call with them.
Mm-hmm.
I've I would say fact finder, pre-approved them.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, it's, life insurance 10, 15 years ago, someone would buy it if they had a family, kids,
mm-hmm.
a breadwinner, maybe, right? I need to make sure that if my husband doesn't come or wife doesn't come home tomorrow, that everything will be okay.
Right.
Right. So that was kind of the premise of life insurance. And then all of a sudden, people started learning, oh, wow, there's tax advantages to life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
I can keep key employees in my company by purchasing a policy on them. So from there, the insurance business has expanded to make our lives easier, right? And at least I know when I'm going to see a client what I'm working with. Why would they want to buy this life insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any children, but I own a pretty big life insurance because I use it as a tax savings vehicle, correct? Right? There's only so many ways that you can make money tax-free. One of them is a Roth IRA. Everybody knows it, right?
Right, yeah.
You can put $6,500 away. You're capped. But you got to wait till 59 and a half to benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Life insurance, that's not the case. You can put $1 million into a policy. As long as you maintain the limits by the IRS, it grows tax-free and you can pull it out tax-free. And a lot of people don't know that.
Right.
So you're a client. I explained that to you and you get it. Obviously you guys have someone at home that you need to take care of in the event things were to occur. But those are just the small factors of life insurance that most people don't know. So it's on me to do a complete client fact finder. And then I go out and say, hey, this is what this is my recommendation based on.
Right. So I have a question. So one of the things that I'm hearing about is this idea of a life insurance plan versus a 529
plan, correct. College savings plans.
Right. So what's the difference? What are we talking about?
Okay. So basically a 529 plan is like a mutual fund account, right?
Okay.
You invest in the market. And the idea is that as long as you use the 529 for college purposes, room, board, tuition, etc., it's tax-free.
Okay.
Okay, but what happens if your child gets a scholarship to UPenn, Wharton School of Business? Well, now that money becomes taxable to you as a parent because it wasn't used for educational purposes.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Life insurance, you can accrue all this cash value into the policy, grows tax-free. When your child's ready to go to college, you pull it out and there's no income tax burden.
And there's not like an age that you can pull that out at. So I don't have to be like a certain age.
Nope, you're not restricted.
It doesn't have to match when my child's going to college, in other words.
Nope. And hey, guess what? Let's say your child goes to school on a college scholarship. We can shift that to retirement income for yourself. The policy.
Yeah, so you're not losing that.
No.
That's really interesting.
And here's my biggest thing with 529 plans, right? Let's say we have 2 kids, correct? And we've been funding these 529 plans for 3 years. And guess what? Me and you go on a road trip. And I mean, this is worst case scenario, but we don't come home.
Right.
How is that 529 going to keep getting funded? You understand?
Right.
With life insurance, the death benefit.
Right.
We'll send our kids through college.
Right.
So we don't have to worry about it. You don't understand? So again, one necessarily cannot be placed with the other, but I truthfully believe that there's more value on the life insurance route.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
but there are barriers, right?
For that.
There are barriers. What are the barriers? One of us may not be insurable.
So what would make somebody not insurable?
Pre-existing conditions.
A lot of things, huh?
Just like anything in life, pre-existing conditions. But I will say that generally speaking, there's a carrier for everybody. Okay. So if I have difficulty with Ameritas, I can go ahead and shop it out to every life insurance carrier. If I have an issue with every other life insurance carrier, there's something called Lloyd's of London. They kind of will carve out a certain plan for that individual. So
even if they're getting denied because of pre-existing conditions somewhere else.
Correct.
So this is really good stuff, Tommy. So when you're talking about like what you can put on social media, these are the kind of videos. So now you're going to get back into making videos because we're doing it right now.
Yeah. So
we're going to get you comfortable on camera with making these videos because this is really good information.
So the way I would see in a perfect world with marketing would be product specific, right?
Okay.
So for instance, we have a company, let's just say we have a real estate company.
Okay.
Right. And we've got 20 big realtors out there and they're all just getting solicited on by all these major carriers, right? Well, I, as an executive, can say, hey, Misty, you're one of my top realtors. You know what I'm going to do?
Right.
I'm going to put $100,000 into this life insurance policy. And as long as you stay with me for 10 years, you will assume ownership of that policy.
Okay.
So the way life insurance works, there's cash value accumulation, right? If I'm funding something for you for 10 years for 100,000, you're looking at minimum $1 million. But here's the problem. You have to stay with me for 10 years, Misty. Because if you don't, I keep the policy. And I get all my premiums back. So that is kind of like a golden handcuff is the...
Golden handcuff.
That's the idea. It's called golden handcuffs.
Okay.
So yes, we could create a marketing campaign for that, right?
Right.
Reach out to companies that have top executives and say, hey, this is... Because here's the issue. The alternative is I can give you that $100,000, right? But then you can go work at another company, right?
Right.
After.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, there's an employer-employee.
So there's an incentive there.
Incentives, right.
And it's tax-free.
Really That's interesting. So do you do life insurance only, or are you doing health insurance too?
So as of recent, I partnered with a friend of mine, Carlos. So he handles all of the health insurance because we are finding, believe it or not, that health insurance is a better door opener to sell you life insurance.
That makes sense.
As opposed to me going in with life insurance and then offering health insurance. So yes, we've had a lot of success with offering health insurance plans, whether it be on a group or individual level, getting the plan in place. And then after the fact saying, hey, by the way,
so that's a part of your sales funnel. You go in, you're finding to go in with so when we talk about sales funnel, we're talking about getting people into your pipeline, right?
Correct.
And then selling them like different things down the road. And you kind of, it's almost, I don't want to
cross-selling.
say like upselling, but like, it's just like, okay, they're here, then they're going to buy this, and they're going to buy this, and they're going to buy that. So you're saying you get in contact with them. You're finding that if you sell them the health insurance that
Because
then you can get to the life insurance piece.
It's simple. We all need health insurance. We don't all need life insurance. So we have found that.
Well, one's a necessity and one can be not
a
luxury, right? It really,
but it really isn't.
It isn't, but it could be seen that way if your budget's tight, right? So
Correct.
I can understand that.
But there's a product for what you just said. If your budget's tight, there's a product, right? There's term life insurance.
Again, talking about education, looking at different
So there is a
Good
product for everybody. The only real barrier with life insurance is insurability.
That
But
makes
again, there's ways to spin
to
that.
find something. Right.
Absolutely. If you,
Right.
let's say, you're uninsurable, but you work with a company that will offer group life insurance as a group, you are able to get that group life insurance policy through the group, right? And you don't have to go through insurability. So we can always make it to where in a perfect world, there is something for everyone. Okay. I will say that COVID has made it a little bit harder for 65 and above.
Okay.
I'm having a little bit of a challenge getting people insured that have pre-existing conditions. And I get it, right? I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. So we have to, that has been a little bit of an issue and a little bit of a barrier, but things are getting better now.
Okay. And what's your thoughts on, okay, so you're going to send someone a life insurance policy. Are there like different layers to that as well? So we're talking about, like, for instance, like long-term care.
Correct.
So can you explain that a little bit?
Long-term care insurance?
Yeah. So like different options, right? So if I'm going to get life insurance, I might have other needs, right? It might just not be a retirement savings or tax savings. It might be, I have a real concern that when I'm older, or God forbid something happens to me and I need long-term care, that I'm covered. Yeah.
So long-term care insurance is very important. I do offer it as well. The problem is a lot of the carriers in that space are not offering it anymore.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. So it's funny you mentioned that, because when I started at John Hancock, and John Hancock was one of the #1 long-term care providers. Pretty simple. What is long-term care? Long-term care is something that will be there in the event you need care when you get older, right? And those have to be defined by what are called activities of daily living. So if you can't do 2 of the 6, continence, transference, I can't bathe, eating, things like that. Typically, if you can't do 1, you typically can't do 2 or 3. And then you qualify. And what happens is, so long-term care was put in place to protect your assets, right? Because if me and you are in our 60s and, we've worked our entire life, we've both accumulated $250,000, we both have these pensions, and then, hey, all of a sudden one of us gets sick, right? So long-term care insurance is built to protect our assets and to pay for our care, whether it be in a facility or be at home. So it's great that you mentioned that, because I do run into instances where, couples are retired and they're just peeling through their assets for care, because the problem is, in this country, you have to basically, to qualify for care on the government, you have to make less than $2,000 a year. And that's after your assets have been used up and dried up. So, and that makes it a challenge for the surviving spouse.
Right.
So I'm glad you brought that up. Long-term care is something that you want to look to purchase in your early 50s, late 40s, because it's inexpensive. When you wait a little too long and you start getting into your latter 60s and 70s, now you're looking at these $500, $600, $700
Oh, wow.
a month premiums.
That's a huge payment.
Correct. It's where you can lock it in your early 50s and latter 40s for 200 and change.
Wow. So it really sounds like, Tommy, like when you meet with people, I mean, we're not going to be able to get through so much today. You've already shared so much, but it sounds like, like education is the key. You're getting people through referrals. And then when you get that and they get into your pipeline, you're having these one-on-one sort of, so that sort of is like your lead funnel. They come through a referral, whereas one time it was cold calling. Now you have like a meeting set up with them. You understand their needs and you can explain to them what might be available and what might not be available to them, right? In terms of whatever their goals are.
Correct.
Because I have a couple of policies with you and I have different goals for each of them, right? So, so when we talk about stuff like that, and then looking at, okay, in the future, where, like where we go. So it sounds like you're really, part of your marketing plan is really is education, but it's also building relationships.
Yep. And so really where I've had a tremendous success in the insurance business is centers of influence, right? Meeting centers of influence. Who are centers of influence? Centers of influence are people that own businesses, right? Because at the end of the day, for me to go out and to sell policies on an individual level, it's great, but it's tough to scale, correct? But when you meet with these business owners, for instance, now, as of recent, I've merged with a payroll company that goes out and offers health insurance benefits to their employees, right? But then I now have access to 100 employees as opposed to just trying to go out and meet them one by one.
Right.
So centers of influence have been powerful for me. And
really, how are you making those contacts nowadays?
Just I mean, you're a center of influence. There's a lot of center of influences, right? You represent companies, you represent businesses. So, just from this, info session today, it probably will ring a bell. Well, hey, so-and-so might benefit from this.
Right.
So-and-so owns a company. So-and-so has 10 key employees that he's having a challenge with keeping. So
right. I know you don't charge for questions or consultations, right? Like, so
nope.
That's another big
Everything
thing. So tell people how they could reach you if they did have some of these questions.
They could reach me on my cell phone. They could reach me by my email.
You want to give out the number for that?
Yep. My cell phone is 786-402-7782. Am I looking at the right camera?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, perfect. My email is tkeane@uclmiami.com. It's just my first initial, my last name at uclmiami.com. I'd be glad to answer any questions or concerns you have.
Yeah, and we got his number on the screen, by the way, so you can grab that and contact Tommy. He's quick to respond.
Correct.
And these are again free questions, right?
Correct.
Like I know sometimes people will charge for consultations or the initial consultation. You're just going to answer anything anybody needs to know for free.
Absolutely.
That's huge.
Absolutely. Again, there is a product out there for everyone. So, the idea is to really fundamentally understand the way life insurance works, because at the end of the day, life insurance is constantly evolving and constantly changing. We're living a lot longer, right? Mortality tables have just changed. So insurance premiums are less.
What is the average lifespan these days?
85.
85. That's impressive.
And women will outlive men, which is why typically life insurance premiums for women are cheaper than men. Correct.
Sorry.
And then, another added value where there's been a lot of success, which has helped our sales, is that now life insurance comes with these long-term care riders.
Right.
Right. So
that's true. Yeah.
Correct. And this, these riders weren't in existence 15 years ago. So, give you an idea, you have $1 million life insurance policy, right? And, let's just think of something crazy. I hate to say it, but it's true. Like a brain tumor, for instance.
Okay.
Well, there are typically 16 qualifiers inside of a policy that in the event that happens, we will give you a percentage of your death benefit up front per occurrence. So why is that important? Because let's just say I have a client that doesn't qualify for long-term care, right? Right. Well, underwriting for long-term care is different than life insurance. So what you may not qualify for long-term care, I may be able to get you into a life insurance policy that has these benefits that will allow for you to qualify, right? So it's kind of a 2-for-1 type thing. And really life insurance, it's very important that you review your policy every 10 years, because there's a good chance that there's been improvements and there's a good chance that you qualify for that improvement.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Yes. Life insurance must be reviewed. I can't stress it enough. And really,
And will you review somebody else's policy?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do it all the time. Most people, I'm finding a lot of people own. It's funny because I've been running into a lot of these State Farm, right? Going back to my testament about getting, let's say, health insurance. What does State Farm do, right? They get you with the car insurance.
Right.
But then it's so simple for them to cross-sell you with the life insurance, right?
Yeah.
So
we see those Progressive commercials all the time. Bundle, bundle, bundle.
But that's the thing is you see these commercials, and it kind of makes our career, I hear a lot of people always saying, oh, well, your business is going to be obsolete one day. But that's not the case, because you can't sell certain products over the internet.
Well, I certainly can't ask, as of right now, can't ask the questions that I want to ask. I don't feel like I get the personalized service. And sometimes I don't want to chat with a bot or go through a questionnaire for something so personal. So
correct.
I do believe that there's a space.
I would recommend everybody, there's a gentleman out there, his name is Nelson Nash. It's a concept, it's called infinite banking. And it's basically using your life insurance policy to be your own banker. It's helped my sales, it's helped my success, because people are understanding that it may make sense to build this nest egg inside of a life insurance policy where I can pull this money, pull this cash value, use it to purchase a home. I can put it back into the policy. It's still earning a dividend as if it never left the policy, versus going to the bank, taking a 3 to 9% loan, right? You can be your own banker. You can do this all through your own policy. So, the power of life insurance is, I can't stress the importance of it, and especially locking it in at a younger age when you're insurable.
Interesting.
Right now, didn't mean to interrupt you, but right now, Most carriers up to $1 million are offering life insurance without having to do a blood or urine sample with the whole coronavirus. So I can't stress how important it is to take advantage of that.
Oh, that's big.
I don't have to even send a nurse to go see you.
Wow. That's an advantage.
Yep.
That's convenient,
Yep.
right? You don't have to set up that appointment and wait for somebody to come to your house.
I can put you through underwriting, simple questions, financials.
People might detox before that. You don't even have to worry about that.
Many factors.
We don't know what goes on.
Many factors.
So anyways, all right. So we need to get ready to wrap up here. So I want to ask you one more question before we close things out. What would be your number one networking tip? Because you're really good at networking. You're very good at speaking to people. This guy will talk to anybody and like find a common ground and just have an awesome conversation with them. So what would be your number one networking tip?
As for me, I just go back to the centers of influence. Find someone where you think, because at the end of the day, for me to, go into a business and solicit what it is that I have to offer, you have to have a center of influence, right? So in my particular situation, financial planners, CPAs, lawyers. These are all centers of influence for me. You understand? Lawyers, someone gets divorced. Most of the time
how do you connect with that lawyer to make them want to invite you into their office?
B&I, I'm going to start into a B&I group hopefully this year. A lot of people in the insurance business have tremendous success with B&I, right? Because there's just 50 to 60 people there that are listening to what you have to say every day. You have to give a commercial, and typically it rings a bell.
Right.
So I have really focused this year on centers of influence, just people that I know can scale and can put me in front of 50 people as opposed to me having to go one by one.
Right. That's super smart. Really, really good tip. Really, really good tip. Thank you for sharing that. So instead of thinking of one by one,
it's impossible to do it on your own, everything on your own.
It is impossible.
You understand? It's with your business, it'd be easier to reach out to me and say, Tommy, who can I help with, their website, their media, things like that. I mean, really, truthfully, you should be helping me with mine.
I should be. Why am I not?
And
why haven't you hired me yet? That's the most important question.
Yeah,
What's up with that?
I will hire you. I will hire you, but we have to figure out what I think the best way we can do this, Misty, together is focusing on, like I said, right, the split dollar plan.
Yeah.
Focusing on a concept and how it applies to so and so, and I believe we will bring in.
Yeah, for you, we got to segment audiences and craft messaging for them and all that. So anyhow, all right. So the time has really flown by today. Tommy's information was up there. If you need anything from him, feel free again to reach out to him and let him know. I want to thank you for being on today's show. We are both FSU graduates. So I'm going to say go Knowles to close out today's show and have a great week. We will see you next week where I am going to have the very amazing and awesome Amber Lovebond. She is an influencer and she's going to talk to us all about, and a journalist, and she's going to talk to us all about influencer marketing and being a journalist in today's market. So that's going to be really fun. Stay tuned for that and make it a good one.